Hi guys, MrRoflWaffles here. This is your ultimate guide to Terminus, explaining everything you need to know about the map, from the very basics like Pack-a-Punch all the way through to some Easter eggs, some high round strategies, and some secret stuff that you may not have spotted. So let's begin with Pack-a-Punch, and as we do so, I'd really appreciate if you dropped a like on the video. Pack-a-Punch on Terminus is fairly self-explanatory. You're going to basically spawn in, and right in front of you is going to be this orange icon on your screen leading you to a little generator. When you go over to it and hold square on it, it'll cost 500 points, and it'll start a 30-second countdown, and you just need to defend that machine for 30 seconds. A whole bunch of zombies will spawn in while you do this, so be very careful. Like, even at round 1, it can get pretty sketchy, but once you successfully defend the machine and the 30-second timer expires, it will be powered on. You'll have given local power to that area of the map, and you'll be able to keep moving. The second machine is a little further, just down the sort of stairs that you can find in the outside area of the map, so follow those down by a couple of doors, and you'll find the machine inside this room here with Juggernog. Do the same thing. Activate it, hold out for 30 seconds, keep it safe. If you fail, you'll need to go to the next round and then activate the machine again, but assuming you don't fail, that'll be done, and then you can work your way through to the underground area of the map, the big sort of laboratory area, and there's a third machine in there for you to activate and defend. Once that's done, you need to jump off the side of the ledge here into the water and swim to the Pack-a-Punch lift, and then activate that, and it will lift the Pack-a-Punch out of the water, and Pack-a-Punch will then be activated. And not only that, but you'll also have local power restored in every area of the map, so you can buy all of your perks. So, while we're speaking about perks, let's show you all the locations. So, the Juggernog machine, like I mentioned before, is here. You've got the Quick Revive machine, that's located here. The Deadshot Daiquiri machine is located here. The Elemental Pop machine is located here. The Stamina machine is located here. The Speed Cola machine is here in the tunnels. The PhD Flopper machine is here. And the new perk, Melee Macchiato, can be found here inside the labs. And this one, if you don't know, I guess I should mention this, it upgrades your melee damage and means that you kind of have a force punch, sort of similar to how you did in Origins. Now, another thing around the map that you're going to want to pay some attention to is Gobblegum machines, because those are back now. They've returned from Black Ops 3, but they work slightly differently. So Gobbles are free to buy each round. You can just buy yourself a Gobble for free, and it'll give you one of the Gobbles in your pack that you set in the game's menus. And you'll also earn Gobbles as you play. So every couple of rounds, you'll see a little animation in the middle of your screen showing a random Gobble being assigned to you. Sometimes it's even multiple Gobbles, and that's then the stash of Gobbles that you'll be able to pull from and use in your matches. There are Gobblegum machines here on Terminus, and here on Terminus, and here on Terminus. So make sure to make use of those Gobbles. Now, for the Arsenal machine, this is a new thing. This is not something that's been in Black Ops 3 or Cold War or anything, and it's replacing the armor dummy from Cold War, except it works slightly differently now. So we'll talk about armor plating and stuff in a moment, but basically the Arsenal machine is where you spend salvage. So you go and find salvage by shooting zombies and picking up the green blobs that will drop onto the floor, and you can then spend salvage on ammo mod upgrades and weapon rarity upgrades at the Arsenal machine. We'll talk more in a bit about how to maximize your DPS in your game and to use weapon rarity or not use weapon rarity versus pack-a-punching and doing other stuff to upgrade your weapon damage. So that will be coming later in the video, but just for the time being, this is basically where you get your ammo mods and where you get your rarities. And you can find Arsenal machines here, and there's another one here, and there's another one here, and there's also another Arsenal machine here. Now, I mentioned we come back to armor, right? Armor in Cold War used to be like linked to this armor dummy machine, whereas now the armor dummy is gone. There is no armor dummy anymore, and instead we've got armor which will be on walls. So you can go over to a blue armor wall buy and buy yourself tier 2 armor for points now, 4,000 points. And there's also tier 3 armor wall buys which are purple, and they cost 10,000 points to get tier 3 armor. Now, obviously, this means that you need to armor up as you play, so remember to keep holding down triangle or whatever your keybind is for your armor, and that will replenish your stash. But you can only keep 3 extra plates on reserve, so be mindful when you start running out of reserve plates that it might be worth really trying to make sure you pick some up from the zombies that you're killing. And you'll get armor plates from armored zombies that you kill, for instance. They'll drop them, and regular zombies can as well. Just look out for them on the floor and run over to them to automatically pick them up. Now, speaking of Cold War systems returning, the crafting bench from Cold War Zombies is back, and it can be found here, but it's in multiple locations, so you can also find it here, and you can also find it here as well. And at the crafting bench, you can specifically get score streaks and equipment. So if you want yourself a self-revive, that's at the crafting bench for 1500 salvage, but you're limited to how many self-revives in one game you can buy now, unlike in Cold War. And you can also find things like Casimir's in there as well. So that can be quite useful if you're trying to stock up in order to do some revives or something like that. But generally, I'd recommend actually avoiding this machine unless you're really doing it for a good reason, because saving salvage for weapon rarity upgrades is probably going to be more important. But again, we'll talk about that more in a little bit. In terms of enemies and what you're facing on Terminus, there's a variety of things, some new, some old. So there's vermin rounds now, where you'll get these little pests that will spawn in, and they'll be very frustrating and shoot little blobs at you, and they're just worth avoiding at all costs. And those vermin rounds will give you max ammo, and they'll happen every 4 to 5 rounds. But then separate to that, there's also manglers. So manglers are back from Cold War, and they're stronger than ever. And there's a new boss called the Amalgam. And the Amalgam is basically a zombie that has transformed into a little vermin pest, little scuttler, and then it's transformed again into this much stronger foe. And these things are very, very difficult to kill, so I would really recommend if you see something transforming into Amalgam at any point, try and take it out before that happens. You'll probably first start seeing these around round 15 in your game, but when they spawn in, you basically need to shoot their glowing weak points, and once you dump a load of damage into them, they will explode. Now, the nice thing about these bosses is that they will drop an extra little reward for you to use. So when you take out a mangler or an amalgam or any high tier enemy, you might find that there is a loot key on the ground, and you can take that key to the lockers in the spawn area of the map and use it to grab yourself some freebies, which is really nice. But I'd recommend that you don't bother doing this unless the key is purple rarity or above, because the purple or above rewards, so that's purple or orange, are just significantly better, and it's not really worth the time if you're just going and getting like a decoy grenade out of a blue reward. So there's a bunch of boss zombies, there's a bunch of stronger enemies, stuff like that. What should you be using to take them down? Well, I'd recommend, as you're kicking the game off, the Marine SP shotgun. I think this thing is very strong. There are stronger guns in the game, don't get me wrong, and I talk about those in my other videos, so I guess subscribe if you want to make sure that you get those in your sub box. But just to begin with, the Marine SP is reliable. It reloads pretty damn quickly, especially if you've got speed cola. This thing reloads in an instant. It's going to one-hit zombies very reliably as well, and overall it's very easy to use. There's no chance of you missing headshots or something with this. You just need to chunk the enemies and you're good. So I'd say that this is one of the stronger weapons that you can use as a loadout weapon, and especially if you play around with like adding the right choke to it and things like that. But initially when you start the game, you're not even going to have that unlocked, so I wouldn't worry about that too much. And we'll also talk more about loadouts versus non-loadout weapons once we get to the DPS section of the video in a moment. Now, I mentioned some Easter eggs, right? First Easter egg we should mention is the music Easter egg. For this, you've just got to find 3 interactable objects, and I'm going to show you the locations for those 3 now, and then a song will play, which is basically Evanescence. It sounds sick. So the first of them is just here in this area, okay? The second that you need to interact with, if you come through here, you can find it just here. And the third interactable object, and bear in mind, as soon as you pick this one up, the song will start playing, is just here. And you won't hear the song, obviously, if you've got your music volume turned down, so keep that in mind. Now then, the wonder weapon on the map can also be achieved through an Easter egg, but we're going to talk about getting it from other means today. So you can get it from trials on the map, which we'll talk about in a second, but you can also get it from the mystery box. So once you get to higher rounds, your box weapon rarity will start increasing, so it will start making more sense to actually spend money on the box, whereas in your first 10 rounds or so, I'd stay away from the box because it's just not worth it. The ROI is really bad. But once you get into the higher rounds, you're pretty likely to get gold weapons from the box, and that includes the Wonder Weapon. This thing is really cool. It's got a beam as its primary fire, but its secondary fire, or its alt fire, is this slowing ray, and when you run out of ammo as well, it will send out a big pulse of energy too to clear the stuff around you. So this thing's really multifaceted, and it's a really fun Wonder Weapon to use, so I highly recommend giving the box a couple spins and giving it a try. That's not the only way to take out zombies though, especially if you're going into the higher rounds. You might need some more reliable stuff. So traps are on the map, and they are very useful. So there's this massive space cannon, deck cannon trap thing, and this fires a massive beam of ether energy into the sky and sucks zombies up that pass below it. And the cool thing about this is if you jump around while you're below the cannon trap while it's on, it will actually suck you inside, which is crazy, and it will teleport you somewhere on the map. It can teleport you to one of the islands that we'll talk about. It can teleport you to nearby building. Like, it can teleport you all sorts of places. So that's a really cool kind of way to escape that area if you should so desire. There's also these tentacle traps, which just suck you up if you go underneath it. Man, I'm thinking about it now, and a lot of the traps suck you in this game. That's crazy. Anyway, they'll suck you up if you go underneath them, but thankfully, if you shoot the head that is sucking you, it will drop you down and you'll be able to escape. But if you don't do that, you'll actually die from the trap, so be very careful of this. And the good news is that it also sucks up the zombies, and the zombies will just get obliterated by the tentacles, and it's a really cool effect as well. So these traps are pretty damn strong, and there's a couple of them around the map as well. Now, there's also interactable stuff around the map that is kind of movement-based. So, for example, in the biolabs area of the map, there's a lift, or an elevator if you're an American, but I mean, it's the British language, guys, right? It's English, so we should really be calling it a lift here. And that lift can be purchased and used to travel all the way from downstairs up to that spawn area where you originally started your game, which can be a really useful way to go and do your keys, for example, if you've got loot keys that you want to redeem at the lockers. Another thing that you'll find around the map are the trials machines. Now, these aren't always present, but they'll spawn in every round or every couple of rounds. And when they do spawn, you can see where they are thanks to this portal in the sky, and that will kind of point to where the machine is at a given time. And when you activate the trial, you'll then have a little challenge to do. So it might be to get trap kills in a certain amount of time or things along those lines. And once the timer expires, you'll have a rating for how well you did, and that will either be just like rare and you'll get a rare reward, or it could be a legendary reward and you get something really incredible like the Wonder Weapon, or maybe a gold score streak like the Mutant Injection, which is also a new score streak in the game. And the Mutant Injection basically turns you into a mangler, which is pretty sick. But anyway, the trials are available for everyone in the game to contribute to at once if you're playing in co-op, and I think that they're really good ROI. They're worth doing for some extra goodies, so keep an eye out for those when you're playing. Now, Exfil is back from Cold War. That's a returning feature, and you can find the Exfil machine just here to call an Exfil in. The Exfil will be available when you get to certain round thresholds, so you'll get to, for example, round 21, and because you've cleared round 20, you'll be able to Exfil. And when you do Exfil, you'll then need to actually get to the Exfil point, so it's not just a case of calling it in and that being that. You then need to actually get on the chopper and get out, so be very careful to not die on your way there, and then you can just grab the chopper and you'll get a bit of extra XP for doing so. However, if you want to stick around in your game, there's some other things that we can do to increase our firepower and also some Easter eggy stuff too. So an Easter eggy related thing, a way to get some extra loot, is actually shoveling, just like in Origins, where you could pick up a shovel and then go to dig sites. You can do that in Terminus too. So in the tunnel areas of the map, there's shovels that you can grab, and once you've grabbed a shovel, you can go to a dig site and you can dig it up. And inside the dig site, you'll find things like regular grenades, equipment, stuff like that. But sometimes you'll find enemies, so be wary of that. And other times you'll find rarer loot as well. So this is a really good way to just kind of keep on grabbing stuff from the environment around you as you play, and helping you kind of top up your resources just to ensure that you can start paying for all those upgrades that you're going to be looking for. So let's talk upgrades, okay? I think in the beginning of your match, when you've not got great loadout weapons, etc., the best way to get started here is actually just to try and grab a weapon from one of the scripted events that you will find around the map as you go go through, and it will typically be green or blue rarity, and it's just by default going to do more damage than your gray rarity base level weapon. This way, you don't have to pay for the rarity upgrade to go from gray rarity and lose 500 salvage or 1,000 salvage in the process. And because the higher rarity upgrades are going to be pretty expensive for salvage, we want to hold on to that as much as we can, and so finding other ways to get a rarity upgrade early in the game is a really good idea, and picking one up off the ground is one such way. You can also use wall buys. That's totally fine. If you see a blue wall buy and you're like, that looks like it slaps, go for it. And same with the mystery box. You don't have to avoid it. I just think that spinning it really repeatedly early on is probably not the best idea. Now, I'd say once you've got your rarity upgraded a little bit, then a Pack-a-Punch tier 1 should become the priority, but not really before, to be honest. And then when you've got Pap tier 1 or maybe Pap tier 2, which you should probably be aiming for by around 15 to 20, then I'd say it's time to start thinking about your rarity again and upgrading in that regard. And I'd also avoid buying self-revives until you've got a high rarity weapon, because otherwise it's just going to be setting you back and taking a lot longer to get to those higher rounds, which isn't doing you any favors at all. Now then, speaking of higher rounds, I think that one of your best bets on this map, if you're looking for a way to sort of really chew through those rounds, is actually to use the deck area where the deck cannon is, because it's really open, which means that you have several exits at all times that you can use to just sort of get out of there. You also have the trap itself, and that means that A, you can escape in a moment if you need to, but B, also you can just use it to clear the zombies as you play. And it's also reasonably central, I would say, which means that you can kind of get to any other area on the map in a fairly equal amount of time. Like, it doesn't feel like you're really sort of scurried away in a far off island or something. It feels like a pretty decent spot to be in. And that's actually something I should elaborate on. There are a couple of islands around the main island on Terminus, and there's also a boat as well. And these are decent areas. Like the boat, for example, can be a mystery box location, so you're going to need to go over there at some point, but you can get isolated out there very quickly, and so they become very dangerous very fast. So for your high rounds, I wouldn't recommend spending a ton of time out there. I think that it's better to be on the main land if you can help it. In terms of high round weapons, a Pack-a-Punched shotgun to tier 3 gold rarity is always going to be pretty damn good. I'd also recommend something like the ray gun. I think it's solid. Beam smasher, also very solid. So I'd say that those should be your sort of picks for this. I wouldn't recommend that you're using like an LMG or something, because you're going to really need the mobility. Now, there is a secret boss that we haven't talked about that is present on Terminus, which I think is worth acknowledging. Basically, when you jump into the map, you're going to notice you can actually spawn boats in when you're in that underground lab area or when you're going to the docks. And if you get in a boat and you start going to one of those islands or one of those ships, you're going to end up getting chased by a green fart. Now, the fart isn't the enemy, but after enough time of being chased around by the fearsome flatulence, you're going to be attacked by a tentacle monster out of the ocean. There is a sea monster down there, and it will start attacking you. And you've got to be very careful of this, because it does a lot of damage when you start getting attacked by the cloud and by that tentacle. But the tentacle can take damage, so it's not like you're completely harmless against it, but just be very mindful of the fact that that thing is going to be chasing you around when you're in the water, so you can't just swim around indefinitely, for instance. That's just not going to be a safe strategy, and you're going to get meated while you're in the water as well. Like, the zombies will throw guts at you, and so just overall, it's a bad idea. So be mindful of the tentacle monster, and if you want to learn how to take the tentacle monster down, I've got a guide link for you on screen right now for you to click. All right, so just click on right through. I'll see you there.